She was 7 months pregnant when she discovered her husband was sleeping with another woman. Most wives would scream. Most wives would cry. Most wives would beg him to stay. Charlotte Cole did something far more terrifying. She smiled. That night, while her billionaire husband was tangled in silk sheets with his mistress at the Four Seasons, Charlotte placed her diamond earrings on the coffee table, wrote a single-page letter, and vanished into the darkness without a word. But here is what Nathan Cole did not understand. His pregnant wife was not running away. She was not broken. She was not weak. She was building a trap. A trap so perfectly designed that by the time Nathan realized what was happening, he would lose everything. His $200 million empire, his reputation, his freedom, and the child he never deserved to know. This is not a story about a woman who gave up. This is a story about a woman who played the long game, who documented every lie, who turned his own mistress into a witness against him, and who walked into a federal courtroom to watch the man who betrayed her get sentenced to 12 years in prison. Stay until the end, because the moment when Charlotte finally confronts Nathan at that charity gala, you will want to rewind and watch it twice. Lesson statement. This story will teach you one powerful truth. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the most dangerous because she is watching, learning, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Meaning statement. Viam truxiti a. Remember this. You do not have to fight every battle the moment it begins. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stay quiet, gather your evidence, and wait until you have the power to win. Charlotte did not escape her marriage. She engineered her freedom. And that is the difference between a victim and a victor. Nathan Cole never imagined that silence could be so deafening. The elevator doors slid open to his 42nd floor Park Avenue residence at 4:47 a.m. Through the massive windows, Manhattan sparkled, vibrant and unceasing, but Nathan paid it no mind. His tie was undone, hanging loosely. His jacket was still infused with the warmth from another person, another place. A different version of himself that he liked to think only came out after dark. He stepped inside and stopped dead in his tracks. The apartment was pitch black, not just dim, completely dark. Charlotte always kept a light on for him when he was out late. Every single time. It was her silent way of showing she wasn't worried, a little display of affection he had ceased to value months ago. But tonight, there was nothing. Only the soft radiance of the city lights seeping through the panes of glass. Nathan flipped a switch. The living room materialized, immaculate and arranged as if for a magazine shoot. The usual throw blanket was missing from the leather couch. Her pregnancy guide was not sitting open on the marble coffee table. The half-empty glass of water she normally left by the window, where she enjoyed watching the city stir to life, was gone. Even the atmosphere felt altered, barren, wiped clean of the lavender fragrance she always used. That is when he noticed it. A tiny velvet box, positioned exactly in the middle of the coffee table. Nathan felt his breath hitch. He recognized that box. He had purchased it 7 years prior, on an impulsive afternoon when he thought love could be measured in material things, back when he still felt the need to prove himself. With fumbling hands, he put his phone down and opened the lid. A pair of diamond earrings rested inside. They were not ostentatious or large, just elegant, the type Charlotte reserved for significant occasions, their wedding day, the day of her first ultrasound, the charity event where she was by his side as investors shook his hand, telling him he was a man to know. Under the earrings lay a single, folded piece of paper. His name was written across the front. The handwriting was neat and unwavering. No smudges, no sign of distress. For a second, Nathan hesitated to open it. He told himself it was all a big misunderstanding. Charlotte was just being hormonal. Pregnancy could do that to a person. She had probably just gone to her mother's for a night or two. He could smooth this over. He always smoothed things over, but the state of the apartment suggested otherwise. Her coat was no longer in the entryway. The framed sonogram picture that was always on the console table had vanished. Her books, her laptop, and the old recipe box from her mother that she kept on a kitchen shelf. They were all gone. Nathan unfolded the letter. The words on the page didn't shout. They didn't point fingers. They didn't plead. They settled softly, which was somehow much worse. By the time you are reading this, I will be gone. This isn't because I was weak, and it isn't because I gave up. It's because I finally accepted the reality you have been showing me for months. Nathan's gaze darted across the page now, quickening, looking for an argument he could fight. I used to think love was about being patient. I believed that if I waited silently, if I stood by you, if I made myself less important, you would finally notice me again. But love is not supposed to feel like being lonely next to someone else. He let out a quiet, scornful laugh. Less important. He had provided her with an entire world. The penthouse, the extravagant life, the kind of security other women only dreamed of. Did that mean nothing to her? I am aware of the nights you claimed were business meetings. I am aware of the hotel rooms that carried the scent of someone else. I never confronted you because I needed to be certain about one thing first. I had to know if I was still willing to erase myself just to hold on to you. Nathan felt a tightness spreading in his chest. He had thought she was oblivious. Or worse, he had thought that even if she knew, she would never have the courage to leave. I am 7 months pregnant. Every choice I make from now on is tied to another heartbeat. I cannot bring a child into a home where unspoken truths cause more pain than arguments, where being loyal is seen as a burden. He shot up from his seat and began to pace. Outside, the city carried on, completely indifferent. The faint sound of car horns drifted up from 42 floors down. In the distance, a siren's wail rose and then disappeared. Life moved on, unconcerned that his was falling apart. This is not about getting even. I am not leaving to make you suffer. I am leaving because if I stayed, I would teach our child the wrong kind of lesson, that love demands being humiliated. That marriage is about enduring without self-respect. Nathan's mouth felt dry. The letter wasn't filled with drama. That was the issue. It left him with nothing to rage against. There was no hysteria he could write off. There were no conditions he could negotiate. You will likely convince yourself that I have overreacted, that my pregnancy has made me irrational, that I will be back once I have had time to cool off. I will not be back. His phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Vivian, bubbly and thoughtless, asking if he had gotten home okay. An image came through after it. 2 champagne glasses, silk bedsheets. Her smile was framed just so to create a sense of intimacy. Nathan looked from the screen to the letter in his hand. I am taking with me only the things that are mine, my dignity, my child, and the kind of future I will not have to beg for. Please do not try to find me. If you ever felt anything for me, let this be your final, freely given gift. The signature was just her name, Charlotte. No little hearts, no final appeal, no offer to talk it over. Nathan sank onto the couch, the leather cool against his skin. For the very first time that night, a feeling he rarely experienced crept over him. It was fear. Because in that flawlessly quiet penthouse, Nathan Cole finally faced the truth he had been dodging for months. This was not some kind of bluff. This was not a challenge. His pregnant wife had not walked out to hurt him. She had walked out because she was finished with him, and buried far beneath his layers of ego and self-deception, a more terrifying thought began to take hold. It was a thought he could not get rid of, no matter how hard he tried. What if she knew this was coming long before he did? What if her departure was not a spur-of-the-moment decision at all? What if his pregnant wife had been methodically planning this very moment while he was too preoccupied with tearing everything down to even see it? Nathan read the note a second time, and then a third. The penthouse had never seemed so cavernous, or so desolate. And for the first time in his adult life, Nathan Cole had no idea what his next move should be. 18 months before, Charlotte Hayes was not searching for a relationship. She was trying to find new business. The charity fundraiser at the Museum of Natural History was the perfect place for her small interior design company to get noticed. It was full of wealthy patrons with refined tastes, people who changed their apartment decor as often as other people buy coffee. That morning, Charlotte had rehearsed her sales pitch in front of the mirror, fiddled with her discounted Nordstrom dress multiple times, and made a vow to herself that she would give out at least 15 business cards by the end of the night. She gave out only 2, and they were both to the same man, Nathan Cole. He had spotted her standing by herself near the dinosaur display, where she was pretending to study the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton, but was actually avoiding a woman who kept asking if she designed baby nurseries. "I can't stand these events," he said, suddenly appearing next to her with 2 glasses of champagne. "Everyone acts like they care about these charities that they'll forget about by next week." Charlotte took the glass automatically. "So why are you here?" A smile touched his lips. "Because my financial advisor tells me that making charitable contributions is good for my taxes." A laugh escaped her before she could contain it. "That is refreshingly direct." "I believe being direct is a time saver." He offered his hand. Nathan Cole. She recognized the name immediately. Everyone in New York City recognized that name. Cole Technologies had graced the cover of Forbes magazine on 2 separate occasions that year. The man before her was estimated to be worth over $200 million and had the looks of a model straight from a photo shoot. Charlotte took his hand, doing her best to appear unfazed. "Charlotte Hayes, I'm an interior designer. For wealthy individuals with more cash than style." Something along those lines. Nathan's smile widened. "I think I'm going to like you." And that is how it all started. What followed was a complete whirlwind. There were spontaneous weekend trips to Paris on private jets, dinner reservations at exclusive restaurants that had 6-month waiting lists. So many flowers were delivered to her small Brooklyn apartment that her neighbors began to wonder if there had been a death in the family. After they had been dating for 3 months, Charlotte's mother came up from Virginia to meet him. Linda Hayes was a 62-year-old woman who had spent 30 years of her life cleaning the homes of the rich. She understood how men of wealth behaved. She recognized the signs. "Honey," she said to Charlotte in a low voice while Nathan was in the other room, "a man who moves this quickly is often running from something inside himself." Charlotte just rolled her eyes. "Mom, he's not running from anything. He's just a decisive person." There is a big difference between being decisive and being controlling. Linda's tone was soft but firm. "Just promise me that you'll always have your own bank account, your own circle of friends, your own separate life." Charlotte gave her word, but it was a promise she would not end up keeping. 6 months later, she became Nathan Cole's wife in a wedding that was worth more than her mother's entire house. She signed a prenuptial agreement she barely even glanced at, mostly because Nathan's lawyer made her feel rushed, and Nathan himself seemed wounded that she would even pause. She let go of her apartment in Brooklyn. She gave up her clients. She surrendered her independence. She moved into his penthouse on Park Avenue and simply became Mrs. Cole. At the reception, her best friend Megan Walker, a divorce lawyer with a razor-sharp wit and 15 years of experience watching love stories collapse, offered a toast that made the whole room chuckle. Raising her glass, Megan said to Charlotte and Nathan, "May your love outlast your prenup." Charlotte laughed right along with everyone else. She had no idea that Megan had already read the agreement, all 47 pages of it, and she certainly did not know that Megan had whispered a piece of advice to her as the night ended, a warning that Charlotte would file away and soon forget. If you ever find yourself needing a way out, document everything. Text messages, emails, every single receipt. You are not doing it because you are paranoid. You are doing it because the courts do not listen to women who just cry. They listen to women who bring evidence. Charlotte had just smiled, hugged her friend, and promised she would be careful. Then she stepped into her brand new life. And bit by bit, without ever really noticing, she started to vanish. On a Tuesday morning in March, the pregnancy test displayed 2 solid lines. Charlotte just sat on the cold bathroom floor for a full 20 minutes, staring down at those lines, trying to figure out if she felt happy or completely terrified. She landed on a mixture of both, but she was mostly happy. Mostly. They had been married for a year. Things were not exactly perfect. Nathan was always working. He would check his phone right in the middle of a dinner, take business calls during movies, and had recently started to fall asleep before she could even finish telling him about her day. But she told herself this was normal. This is what success required. Every article she read about powerful men always mentioned the sacrifices their families had to make. Charlotte convinced herself that she could make those sacrifices too. She began to plan a very elaborate surprise. The first ultrasound appointment was set for 2 weeks away. Her plan was to hide the photo inside a gift box, wrap it perfectly, and give it to him at their favorite restaurant. Nathan was a man who loved surprises. He adored grand gestures. She knew this would remind him exactly why he had married her in the first place. The dinner reservation was for 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. At 5 o'clock, Nathan sent a text to cancel. It was an emergency board meeting, he wrote. Investors were flying in from Singapore. He absolutely could not miss this one. Rain check? Charlotte just sat alone inside her walk-in closet for an hour, still in the new dress she had bought just for that night, with the unopened gift box resting on her lap. She ended up telling him the news over warmed-up pasta at 11 o'clock that evening. Nathan did hug her. He even lifted her from the floor and spun her around while saying all the perfect words. "This is incredible. We are going to be a family. I cannot believe this is happening." But his phone vibrated twice while he held her, and he glanced at it both times. Charlotte told herself that this was also normal. The first trimester went by in a haze of sickness and deep exhaustion. For the first couple of weeks, Nathan would talk to her belly every single night, telling their future child all about the New York skyline, about the importance of ambition, and about how anything was possible if you were willing to work hard enough for it. By the second month, those nightly chats had turned into weekly ones. By the third month, they had stopped completely. Nathan began to travel much more often. He flew to Chicago, then Los Angeles, then Miami. Investor meetings, he would always say. He was closing big deals. He was building our future. More often than not, Charlotte found herself eating dinner by herself. She would just stare at the city lights reflecting in the window as her meal grew cold on the plate. She eventually stopped asking Nathan what time he would be home because his answer never changed. Late. Do not wait up for me. So she adapted. She always had. Her first ultrasound appointment was booked for a Thursday afternoon. Nathan had promised her he would be there. He put it in his calendar. He even set 3 separate reminders. He never showed up. Charlotte had to lie alone on the examination table, watching the flicker of her baby's heartbeat on the monitor as tears quietly streamed from her eyes into her hair. The technician made a point not to look at her. She must have seen scenes like this every day. Pregnant women with missing husbands. It was the same sad story playing out in doctors' offices all over the city. Afterwards, Charlotte finally broke down and cried in the parking garage. Not because anything was wrong with her baby, but because she knew something was deeply wrong with her marriage. And for the first time, she truly let herself feel it. After that day, the gifts began to show up. Expensive jewelry, bouquets of flowers, designer handbags. Every delivery came with a note of apology. Sorry I could not make the appointment. Sorry I have been so swamped with work. Sorry I am not the husband that you deserve. Charlotte took the gifts because accepting them was far easier than admitting what they really felt like. They felt like payments, like bribes. They felt like a man trying to buy his way out of a guilty conscience he did not want to think about too hard. She started to notice the change in the way Nathan looked at her. He was not being openly unkind, just distant. He had less patience for her. He would kiss her on the cheek instead of her lips. He would blame his lack of desire on being tired. He stopped asking her how she was feeling because he just assumed her being there meant that she was fine. The first time Charlotte smelled a strange perfume on his jacket, she did not say a word. The second time, she washed the jacket herself. The third time, she finally stopped pretending. The thing that hurt the most was not the betrayal she already suspected. It was the cold realization that the man she married did not see her as his partner anymore. She had become just a chapter in his life that he had already moved past. So Charlotte started to watch him, silently, very carefully. She began to notice all the patterns she had chosen to ignore before. The late nights at the office always seemed to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The business trips never included an invitation for her to come along anymore. The way Nathan's phone was always turned face down on the table, always password protected, and always just beyond her reach. 3 weeks later, she found the first hotel receipt tucked away in his coat pocket. The Four Seasons, $1,200. It was for a night he had told her he was in Chicago, meeting with investors. Charlotte did not confront him. Instead, she just picked up her phone and called the hotel, pretending to be his personal assistant. "Good afternoon. I am calling for Mr. Nathan Cole. He thought he might have requested an extra key card for his wife during his stay last week. Could you please check if she was able to pick it up?" There was a short pause on the other end, followed by the sound of typing. "Oh, of course," the concierge replied in a cheerful voice. Ms. Hart collected it from the front desk herself. "Is there anything else I can assist you with today?" Charlotte felt her heart completely stop. "No," she said, her voice remaining perfectly calm. "That was everything I needed to know. Thank you so much." She ended the call and just sat in the deafening silence of the penthouse, pressing her hands against her belly and feeling her baby kick inside her. Vivian Hart. Charlotte had actually met her once before at a company party. She was young, she was beautiful, she was incredibly ambitious. She was the type of woman who would smile at wives with a look of poorly hidden pity. For a few long moments, Charlotte thought about confronting him. She pictured herself screaming, breaking things, demanding answers that she knew would only be a string of lies. But then she remembered the words Megan had told her on her wedding night. The courts do not listen to women who just cry. They listen to women who bring evidence. Charlotte opened her laptop and created a brand new email address. It was a secret account that Nathan would never be able to find. And then she started documenting everything, every single receipt, every late night, every excuse that did not quite make sense. She forwarded his credit card statements to herself and took pictures of his calendar. She recorded dates and times and locations with the kind of precision you would expect from someone building a legal case, because that is precisely what she was doing. Charlotte was 7 months pregnant and felt completely trapped in a marriage to a man who had stopped seeing her as a person. But she was not a stupid woman, and she was certainly not helpless. She just needed more time. She needed time to collect all her evidence, time to create a solid plan, and time to figure out exactly how to leave a man who was worth $200 million without losing everything she had, especially her child. She lay awake in bed that night, with Nathan snoring beside her, his phone buzzing with messages he believed she knew nothing about. Charlotte put a hand over her stomach and made a silent vow. I will get us out of this situation. Both of us. I just have to be very, very smart about it. She closed her eyes, and she began to plan her escape. At 2 o'clock in the morning, she sat at the kitchen table. While the massive penthouse was completely silent around her, her hand perfectly steady in spite of it all. There were no tears. There was no drama. There was only the truth, boiled down to the simple words she needed him to read. She wrote about the feeling of being lonely. She wrote about always waiting for him. She wrote about the slow, painful realization that love is not supposed to feel like some kind of difficult test. She never mentioned Vivian by her name. She did not have to. The evidence she had gathered would eventually speak for itself. When she was done, Charlotte read the letter over one more time, folded it neatly, and slipped it into an envelope with Nathan's name written on the front. Then she started to pack. She did not take very much, just one suitcase, her personal laptop, all of her medical records, and the folder full of evidence that she had been putting together for months. She also took her mother's old recipe box, which was the one piece of her old life that she could not bear to leave behind. The diamond earrings, however, stayed. Charlotte put them back in their velvet box and placed them right on the coffee table where Nathan would be forced to see them. It was a symbol. It was a goodbye. It was a final statement that said much more than any letter ever could. I am leaving all the things you gave me. I am only taking with me what I have truly earned. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Charlotte stood in the doorway of the apartment she had considered her home for the last 3 years. The city lights sparkled outside the windows, looking both beautiful and completely indifferent to her situation. Somewhere in that city, her husband was asleep in another woman's bed, fully expecting his pregnant wife to be waiting for him when he came home. But she would not be waiting. Charlotte pulled the door shut with a soft click that sounded just like finality. She rode the elevator down 42 floors, walked across the marble lobby, and got into a car she had reserved the night before using a different name. The driver was silent, just as she was paid to be. As the car sped away from Park Avenue, Charlotte stared at the skyscraper vanishing in the rearview mirror. It held 3 years of her life, a prison of glass and steel. 3 years of shrinking herself, of bending to fit a life that was never really hers. That was over now. She faced the road ahead, her hands resting on her belly. A strong, determined kick came from within. I know, Charlotte whispered to her unborn child. We are going to a safe place. I promise you. The journey stretched on for 12 long hours. She had thought about hiding in the city, maybe finding a small place Nathan would never consider, but she knew better. She understood his power, his influence, and his terrifying ability to track down anyone he chose. She had to vanish without a trace. Her mother's home in Virginia offered the perfect refuge. It was a small, weathered house in a blue-collar neighborhood where a man like Nathan Cole would never dream of looking. The grass was overgrown, and the paint was flaking off the siding. Inside, the familiar scent of her mother's cooking from the last 30 years filled the air. It was absolutely perfect. Charlotte finally pulled up at 4 in the afternoon, sick to her stomach and weary from the long drive. Her mother, Linda Hayes, stood waiting on the front porch with her arms crossed, her face impossible to read. Linda had gotten just one text that morning. Coming home, need help. Do not tell anyone. She had not replied with any questions. The moment Charlotte got out of the car, she broke down completely. In 3 quick steps, Linda closed the distance and pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. There was no judgment in her touch, no hint of, "I told you so." It was just the strong, steady comfort of a woman who had faced her own battles and won. "I am so stupid," Charlotte cried into her shoulder. "You tried to tell me. Megan tried to tell me. Everybody knew but me." Linda smoothed her hair back from her face. "You are not stupid. You are a woman in love. There is no shame in that." She held Charlotte at arm's length, her gaze direct. But staying with him? That would have been a mistake. Once inside, Charlotte sank into the old, familiar couch from her childhood. The cushions were flattened, and the material was faded, yet it felt more like home than that gleaming penthouse ever did. Linda quietly brought her a glass of water and some crackers, giving her space. She knew that some stories can only be told when they are ready. When she was ready, Charlotte explained it all. She told her mother about the affair, the proof she had found, and the note she left on the table. She confessed her deep-seated fear that Nathan would hunt her down, take the baby, and destroy what little she had. Linda listened patiently to the entire story. After a long silence, her mother simply nodded. Then, she asked the one question that cut through the chaos. "So, what is your plan?" Charlotte let out a shaky breath. "I do not have one. I have $3,000 to my name, no career, no way to pay for a doctor. I am 7 months pregnant and have nobody." Linda immediately shook her head. "You are not alone. You have me. First thing in the morning, we will get you signed up for Medicaid. After that, we find some free legal help." Linda leaned in, her tone turning to steel. Men with money always think they can bury their secrets. They believe they can crush anyone who stands up to them with expensive lawyers. But there is always a paper trail, sweetie. Always, and we will find it. Charlotte stared at her mom, feeling a flicker of something new inside her. It was not quite hope, not yet, but it was close. It was the start of a fight. That evening, as she lay in her old childhood bed, she gazed at the same familiar ceiling from years ago. The room felt tiny, the mattress uneven. She could hear the faint sound of the television from the living room where her mother was. Placing a hand on her belly, she felt her daughter stir. "We are going to be all right," she whispered into the quiet room. "I am not sure how, but I know we will be." She shut her eyes, and for the first night in a very long time, her sleep was free of dreams about Nathan Cole. Meanwhile, back in Manhattan, Nathan awoke to a silent, empty penthouse and a letter that was about to detonate his world. Pure rage was his first response. How could she do this? After all he had provided for her? He tried calling Charlotte 47 times, but there was no answer. Each call went directly to her voicemail, where her bright, happy recording mocked the storm brewing inside him. He finally called his lawyer at 6 in the morning. "Find her," Nathan commanded, his voice strained with anger. "And I want to know exactly what she took with her." The lawyer assured him he would start right away. After hanging up, Nathan stalked through the apartment like a trapped animal, his mind racing, unable to focus. Vivian showed up at noon. She used her own key to let herself in, her expression a perfect mask of concern. Nathan was too distracted to see the cold strategy in her eyes. "I heard the news," Vivian said in a gentle voice, making herself comfortable on the sofa as if she owned the place. "Are you all right?" "She is gone," Nathan stated, his voice devoid of emotion, vanished in the night like a coward. Vivian gave a sympathetic nod. She was never very stable. Those pregnancy hormones can make women crazy. To be honest, Nathan, you are lucky to be rid of her. Nathan desperately wanted to accept her words as truth. He needed to believe Charlotte was the one with the problem, that her running away was a sign of her own weakness and not his fault. Concentrate on your business, Vivian went on, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. I will be here to support you. Nathan looked at her, a wave of relief washing over him. Finally, someone who got it. He was completely oblivious to the faint, triumphant smile on Vivian's lips. He had no idea that his pregnant wife leaving was the very thing she had been hoping for. That afternoon, Rosa, the housekeeper, came for her scheduled cleaning. She was a 58-year-old woman from the Dominican Republic who had been with Nathan for 10 years. In that time, she had watched 3 other girlfriends pass through his life before Charlotte. Rosa had been truly fond of Charlotte. Mr. Cole, Rosa began cautiously as she put down her supplies. Is Mrs. Charlotte going to return? Nathan's muscles tensed. That is not your business. Rosa gave a slow, deliberate nod, her face revealing nothing. You should know, she did not take a single thing. I looked. Every piece of jewelry is accounted for. The expensive handbags, the paintings you gave her. She left everything behind. Nathan just stared. So what? So, Rosa replied, her voice steady. When a woman leaves with nothing, it is not because she is after your wealth. It means she is looking for something your money cannot purchase. Nathan started to say something, but Rosa was already turning from him, getting the vacuum cleaner with the quiet finality of someone who has made their point. Nathan was left standing by himself in the vast, empty apartment. The letter lay on the coffee table, and nearby the diamond earrings sparkled in the afternoon sun. For the first moment since he had found her gone, a seed of doubt began to grow in his mind. What if the housekeeper was right? What if his pregnant wife did not run away out of weakness? What if she left because she was far more powerful than he ever gave her credit for? 2 weeks passed. Charlotte was at her mother's kitchen table, deep in research about Medicaid on her laptop. When the doorbell chimed, Linda went to the door and came back holding an envelope, so thick it looked like a novel. You have been served, Linda said, her voice low, as she placed the package on the table in front of her daughter. Charlotte's hands trembled as she tore open the envelope. A flood of legal papers covered the table, filled with confusing terms, false claims, and demands that made her feel sick. Nathan was accusing her of abandoning him. He had already frozen their bank accounts. He was insisting she give back all marital assets, even the diamond earrings she had pointedly left on her dresser. But the cruelest blow was his accusation that by leaving while pregnant, she was trying to turn their child against him. Her eyes blurred as she read the final section over and over. It said he was filing for emergency custody of their unborn baby and asking the court to force her into a psychiatric exam to see if she was a fit mother. He wants to take my baby from me, Charlotte whispered in disbelief. Her mother sat next to her, her expression serious. No, he wants to frighten you so you will run back to him. There is a big difference. At that moment, Charlotte could not see it. She could only see the towering stack of legal papers, the massive legal team Nathan could buy, and the horrifying thought that she had made a catastrophic error. With shaking hands, she grabbed her phone and dialed the one friend she knew she could count on. Megan picked up almost immediately. In a frantic, single breath, Charlotte poured out the whole story, the legal documents, the wild accusations, the threat to her baby, the demand for a psych evaluation. Megan heard her out in complete silence. When Charlotte finally ran out of words, Megan's voice was perfectly calm. This is a strategy, Charlotte, not a final move, Megan explained. He is just trying to overwhelm you, hoping one of these attacks will work. Guys like him do this constantly. They need you scared and hopeless, so you will come back and let them have control. Charlotte dried her tears. So what should I do? Absolutely nothing for now, Megan instructed. Do not answer his calls. Do not reply to any of this. And stay completely off of social media. I am getting on a plane this weekend. We will handle this together. There was a short pause, and then her tone softened. Charlotte, there is one more thing. I could not say anything before because I could not prove it. But I have been the lawyer for 3 other women in cases against Nathan Cole. Charlotte felt her heart freeze in her chest. What are you talking about? Before he met you, Megan said, choosing her words with care, there were 3 others. They were just girlfriends, not his wife. He got each of them pregnant, paid them to go away, and forced them to sign confidentiality agreements. You were not his first target, Charlotte. You were just the first one he put a ring on. The room seemed to lurch sideways around Charlotte. Her fingers dug into the table's edge as she fought to keep her balance against the weight of this new reality. Megan's words echoed in her mind. He has a pattern, and patterns can be broken. Charlotte's gaze fell on the legal documents spread out before her, the false claims, the menacing language, the whole calculated effort to portray her as mentally unstable. In an instant, her perspective shifted. Nathan wasn't trying to fix their marriage. He was trying to salvage his public image. He was running the exact same play he had used on 3 other women. This time, though, Charlotte thought, with a cold resolve, he picked the wrong wife. 3 days later, Megan arrived in Virginia, pulling a carry-on suitcase with the practiced ease of someone who regularly flew in for emergencies. She gave Charlotte a quick, firm hug before immediately laying out files on the kitchen table. Okay, here's the situation, Megan said, her tone strictly professional. Nathan's accusations are meant to scare you, not to actually hold up in court. To prove parental alienation, he has to show you've interfered with his relationship with the child. You can't interfere with a relationship that hasn't even started because the baby isn't born yet. She tapped another paper. And this request for a psychiatric evaluation is just a bullying tactic. Any respectable judge will see right through it. The asset freeze? That's precisely why we have the enlad you collected. Charlotte nodded, feeling more grounded than she had in days. Megan's certainty was infectious. But there's something more, Megan went on, something we can use to our advantage. She slid a folder from her briefcase, opening it to show a collection of printed emails, photos, and financial statements. Nathan has been hiding money for years, Megan revealed. He uses shell corporations, offshore bank accounts, and properties registered under other people's names. I started tracking him after the first woman contacted me, just waiting for something solid. Megan met Charlotte's eyes. You gave me that solid proof. The evidence you found shows he used business funds to pay for his personal life, right down to the hotel rooms with Vivian Hart. That's fraud. And fraud changes the entire game. Charlotte stared at the pile of documents. How on earth did you get all this? Megan offered a slight, knowing smile. Wealthy men think they are invincible. They assume because they can hire top-dollar lawyers, they can never be caught. But lawyers have networks. And some of us have been waiting a very long time for a woman with the courage to stand up to him. She reached out and gave Charlotte's hand a reassuring squeeze. You are that woman, Megan said, and we are not going to lose. For the first time since those papers were served, Charlotte felt a flicker of hope. It vanished just 3 days later. She woke up at 2 in the morning, a sharp, twisting pain cutting through her middle. She lay perfectly still in the dark, hoping it would fade, telling herself it was nothing, just stress, just anxiety. Maybe the usual aches of pregnancy, magnified by everything happening, but it came back, fiercer this time, deeper. It was a pain that refused to be ignored, Charlotte struggled to sit up, a gasp escaping her lips as she reached for the bedside lamp. The small room was suddenly bathed in light. Her hands were trembling. "Mom!" she cried out, her voice thin and shaky. "Mom!" Something is really wrong. Linda was in the doorway in an instant. She took one look at her daughter's face, her own expression hardening with worry, and grabbed the phone. The hospital was only 20 minutes from the house, but the drive felt like it took 20 years. Charlotte lay in the back of her mother's car, pressing her hands against her belly while tears streamed down her cheeks. Every little bump in the road sent a new jolt of pain through her. Each passing minute stretched into an eternity. "Please," she whispered over and over. "Please, please." She didn't know if she was praying or begging or just clinging to the sound of her own voice. Once they reached the emergency room, everything became a chaotic swirl of bright lights and rushed voices. Machines beeped all around her. Someone's hands were pressing on her. A nurse asked questions she could barely process. "Your blood pressure is at a critical level," a doctor told her, his face grave. "We have to get you stabilized right now. If we can't bring this down, we might have to deliver the baby early." "Early?" Charlotte's voice cracked. "But I'm only 32 weeks pregnant." The doctor's expression softened just a little. "We're going to do everything in our power, but I really need you to try to stay calm. Stress is only going to make this situation worse." Calm. He was asking her to be calm while her life was falling apart. While her baby's life was at risk, while her husband was using the courts to take her child, her own body was trying to take her child through a medical crisis. Charlotte squeezed her eyes shut and focused out on her breathing. In, out, in, out. The hours dragged on. Lab results came in. Medicine flowed into her arm through an IV drip. At last, just as the first light of dawn was appearing in the windows, the doctor came back. "The baby is stable for now," he said, "and your blood pressure is slowly decreasing, but you absolutely must rest. I mean real rest. No stress, no court cases, no fighting. Your body simply cannot take it right now." Charlotte gave a weak nod, overcome with waves of relief. It had been so close, terrifyingly close. Later, when she was finally alone in the quiet room, with only the soft hum of the monitors, Charlotte rested both hands on her belly and felt her daughter kick. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry. I promise I will do a better job. I promise I will keep you safe." The baby kicked once more, as if she understood. Lying there in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles, Charlotte understood something with chilling clarity. She had been fighting Nathan's battle. She had been reacting to his moves, letting his lawyers dictate the strategy and the schedule. That was about to end. From now on, she was going to fight her own battle, on her own terms, and she was going to win it. Charlotte left the hospital 3 days later, armed with a list of strict orders and several prescriptions. Her mother drove her home at a crawl, carefully navigating around every single pothole and speed bump as if the car itself were fragile. For 1 full week, Charlotte did next to nothing. She slept for hours. She ate the food Linda put in front of her. She would sit on the porch in the warm afternoon sun, watching the birds flit around the overgrown garden. She never checked her email. She didn't touch a single legal paper. She refused to think about Nathan Cole, except for the fleeting moments right before falling asleep, when his face would appear in her mind and she would force it away. Her body began to heal. Her mind started to catch up, though much more slowly. When she finally felt ready to open her laptop, an email from Megan was waiting for her that changed the course of everything. "I found someone who can help us," Megan wrote. "Her name is Helen Russo. She's a retired family court judge, served 28 years. Now she helps women in your exact position, free of charge. She wants to meet you." Charlotte looked in the words on the screen for a long time. Finally, she typed her response. Set up the meeting. Helen Russo was 68 years old with a full head of silver hair, and she was absolutely intimidating. She pulled up to Linda's house in a plain sedan and wore a blazer that probably cost more than all the furniture in the living room. Her handshake was like a vice. Her sharp eyes seemed to take in every detail. Charlotte Hayes, Helen said, taking a seat at the kitchen table as if she owned the place. I've reviewed your file. Your documentation is outstanding. Most women don't realize they need to collect evidence until it's far too late. Megan told me to, Charlotte confessed. That was before I even realized what was coming. Helen gave a nod of respect. You have a smart friend. She took a breath. I've dealt with hundreds of men like Nathan Cole. They believe their money makes them gods. They believe their expensive legal teams can crush anyone who gets in their way. They believe women like you will eventually break because the fight is just too exhausting. She leaned in closer. So, are you going to break? Charlotte thought back to the hospital room. She remembered the sound of the heart monitor, the feeling of terror, and how close she had come to losing her daughter. No, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I am not going to break. A smile touched Helen's lips. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a strategist who had just gotten the answer she was waiting for. Excellent. In that case, let me walk you through our plan. She laid out several documents on the table, her finger tapping on names and figures as she laid out the strategy. Nathan is making 3 huge mistakes, Helen began. First, he's underestimating you completely. He's convinced these legal threats will bully you into giving up. Second, he's overestimating his own influence. That demand for a psychiatric evaluation is flimsy. Any judge with half a brain will toss it out. And third, this is the most important part, he is putting his trust in the wrong people. Her finger came to rest on one name, Vivian Hart. Nathan is sure Vivian is his ally, Helen explained. She's not. I've had my eye on her for 3 years. She's been linked to at least 2 other corporate implosions, 2 other powerful men who trusted her, 2 other men who lost it all. Charlotte's brow furrowed. You think she's planning to do the same thing to Nathan? I think Nathan Cole is so obsessed with defeating you that he can't even see the real danger standing right next to him. Helen leaned back in her chair, a calculating look in her eyes. So here is our strategy. First, we will defend against every one of his attacks. We will get that fraudulent request for a psych eval thrown out. And after that, we are simply going to wait. Wait for what? Charlotte asked. For Nathan to light his own life on fire. The counteroffensive started without any fanfare. Megan filed motions that systematically challenged every single claim in Nathan's suit. The charge of abandonment was thrown out in less than 2 weeks. The court partially lifted the freeze on her assets. The request for a psychiatric evaluation was denied after Helen made just one call to the judge's clerk. From her home in Virginia, Charlotte could only watch as her legal team took Nathan's case apart, one piece at a time. But Helen's instructions had been clear. Just winning in court wasn't the goal. They needed Nathan to become so busy, so wrapped up in his own escalating problems, that he would never notice the final decisive move they were about to make. Charlotte realized she needed to find them. She reached out to the 3 other women Nathan had bought off before her. It took weeks of careful conversations, gentle promises, and legal safeguards before any of them were willing to talk. But when they did, the picture they painted was far darker than Charlotte had ever imagined. Nathan had a clear system. He targeted ambitious women, charmed them, and got them pregnant. The moment they became a problem, he made them vanish. He used non-disclosure agreements and settlements that seemed large, but came with a lifetime of forced silence. He threatened to ruin anyone who dared to break the rules. 3 women, 3 pregnancies, and 3 payoffs. Charlotte was meant to be the exception. She was supposed to be his wife, the one he could show off, the public face of Nathan Cole's perfect life, but she had refused to play her part. That refusal made her a threat. Charlotte would lie awake at night, replaying everything she had learned. Nathan had never actually loved her. She was just a business move, a way to clean up his image and convince investors that he was a stable family man. The pregnancy didn't change his plan, it just sped it up. He needed a child for the company's annual report, a perfect family photo. A prop. Charlotte placed a hand on her stomach, feeling her daughter kick. "You are not a prop," she whispered into the darkness. "You are not a bargaining chip. You are my daughter, and I will never let him use you." The baby kicked again, a strong and determined little thump. Charlotte smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. For months, she had felt like a victim, completely powerless, while Nathan held all the power. But she finally saw the truth. Nathan wasn't powerful, he was desperate. He was just a man watching his carefully built world start to fall apart, and he was taking it out on the person he thought was the easiest target. But Charlotte wasn't an easy target anymore. She was the one with all the evidence, and she was about to use it. Baby Emma was born on a Thursday morning in early October. Charlotte had prepared herself for a difficult birth. After everything she had endured, the hospital scare, the weeks of intense stress, the constant fear, she was ready for complications. But instead, Emma arrived quickly. She weighed 7 pounds and 4 ounces, had healthy lungs, and perfect little fingers. Her cry filled the entire room and made Charlotte burst into tears of pure, overwhelming happiness. A nurse laid the baby on Charlotte's chest, so warm and solid and unbelievably tiny. "Hi," Charlotte whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I've waited so long to meet you." Emma blinked up at her with blurry, newborn eyes, and Charlotte felt something locked deep inside her finally break free. This was the only thing that mattered. Not Nathan, not the legal battles, not the money or the fancy apartment. Just this tiny person, this new life she had protected through betrayal and fear. This was everything. Linda showed up an hour later with a stuffed elephant, crying almost as hard as Charlotte had. "She's perfect," Linda said, her fingers trembling as she gently stroked Emma's cheek. "Absolutely perfect." Charlotte could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak. Later that evening, when the room was finally quiet and Emma was sleeping in her hospital bed, Charlotte glanced at her phone. There were 16 missed calls from Nathan's lawyers. There were 0 from Nathan. She looked at the screen for a long time. Then she flipped the phone over, face down, and turned her attention back to her daughter. "You deserve so much better than him," Charlotte said softly, "and I'm going to make sure you get it." The custody hearing was set for 3 weeks after Emma's birth. Charlotte walked into the courthouse, flanked by Helen Russo on one side and Megan on the other. Emma was safe at home with Linda. Charlotte had pumped enough milk to last for a week and had given her daughter's forehead about 400 kisses before she left. Now she stood in a marble hallway, wearing a simple black dress and feeling the quiet strength of a woman with nothing left to fear. Nathan and his legal team were already inside. There were 4 lawyers in expensive suits, shuffling papers and looking important. Nathan sat at the far end of the table, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the door. Their eyes met the moment Charlotte walked in. For just a second, a flicker of something crossed Nathan's face. Maybe it was surprise, or maybe recognition. She had changed. She was thinner, and her expression was harder. She no longer looked like the wife who had run away. She looked like someone who had come back to fight. Charlotte held his gaze for exactly 3 seconds before looking away and taking her seat. The hearing started. Nathan's lawyers presented their case with practiced skill. They claimed Charlotte was unstable, that she had abandoned their marriage without any warning, and had denied a father access to his child. They suggested she was an unfit mother. Helen Russo listened to it all with no expression on her face. When her turn came, she stood up slowly and spoke to the court with the confidence of a person who had been in this situation 1,000 times. "Your Honor," she began, "my client did not abandon her marriage. She escaped a pattern of emotional abuse and infidelity, which we have thoroughly documented." She passed a folder to the court clerk. "Inside, you will find proof of the petitioner's affair, including hotel bills, witness testimony, and financial records that show marital money was used to pay for romantic trips with his mistress, Vivian Hart." Nathan's lead attorney jumped up. "Objection, this has nothing to do with custody." Helen offered a cold smile. "I disagree. A father's character is always relevant, especially when that character includes paying off 3 other women he got pregnant to buy their silence." The courtroom fell completely still. All the color drained from Nathan's face. Helen went on, her voice calm but crushing. "The petitioner has a clear history of getting women pregnant and then using his money to silence them. My client is just the first one brave enough to turn down his money and fight back. She didn't abandon her child. She protected her child from a father whose only interest is in controlling the story." Helen then turned to the judge. "The psychiatric evaluation that was requested by the petitioner was not done by a licensed professional. We have proof that the report given to this court was written by Dr. Marcus Bell, who is the brother of Vivian Hart. He was paid $50,000 to create a fake document without ever even meeting my client." Nathan's lawyer was on his feet again. "Your Honor, these are baseless and serious accusations." Helen reached into her folder and pulled out a printed bank statement. "This is the wire transfer from Vivian Hart to Dr. Marcus Bell, dated 1 week before the evaluation was turned in. I believe that provides a foundation." The judge looked at the document for a long time, then she looked directly at Nathan. "Mr. Cole, do you have anything you would like to say?" Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it. He tried again. For the first time in his entire life, he was speechless. The judge's decision came 2 hours later. Charlotte was given full custody of Emma. Nathan was only allowed supervised visits, and he had to undergo his own psychological evaluation. The restraining order Charlotte asked for was granted, and the fake psychiatric report was sent to the state medical board for investigation. Charlotte walked out of the courthouse and into the afternoon sun. Megan gave her a big hug. Helen shook her hand, showing more warmth than Charlotte had ever seen from her. "This isn't over yet," Helen warned. "Men like Nathan don't give up." Charlotte nodded. "I know." But for the first time in months, she felt like she could finally take a deep breath. She had won. She had actually, truly won. The feeling of victory lasted for about 3 days. Charlotte was sitting in her mother's living room, with Emma asleep in her arms when a certified letter was delivered. She assumed it was just routine legal paperwork. Instead, what she read made her blood run cold. Nathan's company was filing for bankruptcy. The 50% of their assets she was awarded in the divorce, the $12 million that was supposed to secure her and Emma's future, was gone. On paper, Nathan Cole was now worth negative $3 million, and Charlotte was legally owed half of nothing. She read the letter a second, then a third time, hoping the words would start to make sense. They never did. Nathan hadn't just lost his company. He had planned this. He must have known the bankruptcy was coming. He probably started planning it the very day she filed for divorce, and she had fallen right into his trap. Charlotte stared at the pile of papers on her mother's coffee table. All the evidence she had collected, the witnesses she had found, the legal battle she had won, none of it made a difference now. Nathan had found another way to defeat her, and he did it without ever having to face her in a courtroom again. Charlotte didn't get any sleep that night. She sat at her mother's kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents, her mind racing with possibilities she couldn't bear to face. The bankruptcy filing was 47 pages of confusing financial terms, but the meaning was simple. Nathan Cole had hidden his money. He had moved his assets, created fake companies, and shifted his wealth to places where the courts couldn't touch it. The bankruptcy wasn't real. It was an act, a show designed to make him look penniless while he kept his millions safe. And Charlotte was meant to be left with absolutely nothing. She was left with no spousal support, no child support, and no hope for the future. So at 3 a.m, she made a call to Megan. "I know it is late," Charlotte began before Megan could even say hello. "I just need you to tell me that I am not losing my mind." Megan's voice was heavy with sleep, but her answer was immediate. "You are not losing your mind. Tell me what happened." Charlotte laid it all out for her. The sudden bankruptcy, the vanished assets, and the sick realization that Nathan had been planning this for a very long time. Megan listened without a word. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "He is very good at this," Megan said. "Even better than I gave him credit for." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" Charlotte asked. "No, it is supposed to make you angry." Charlotte squeezed her eyes shut. "I am already so angry." "Good," Megan said, "because anger is what gets things done. And listen to me, Charlotte. Wealthy men do not really go bankrupt. They just move their money to places people cannot find it. We are talking about offshore accounts, cryptocurrency, and property hidden in other people's names. The money is absolutely still there. Our job is to find it." "How?" Charlotte asked. "We start with Vivian," Megan replied. "The investigation would take weeks." Charlotte's first call was to Rosa, the housekeeper, who had been with Nathan for a decade. Rosa had seen and heard everything, and her memory was perfect. "Mr. Nathan, he was on the phone all the time," Rosa explained during their first talk. "He assumed I did not understand him, because my English is not perfect, but I understand a lot more than he thinks." Rosa continued, "I heard him talking to Miss Vivian about buying houses, about private islands. He talked about putting things in her name." Charlotte leaned closer to the phone. "What kinds of things?" Rosa paused. "Everything. Bank accounts, properties. He called it a form of protection. He said that nobody could ever take away what they could not find." Charlotte's heart started beating faster. "Do you remember any names, any locations?" Rosa considered it for a moment. "The Bahamas." He mentioned the Bahamas many times, and there was a company name. It had the word blue in it. Blue water, or maybe blue horizon, something like that. That small clue was all they needed. Megan dug into the lead, searching through corporate records, financial databases, and using connections that operated just outside of normal business channels. What she discovered was far worse than Charlotte could have ever imagined. Nathan had done more than just hide his assets. He had moved a total of $8 million to a shell company named Blue Harbor Holdings, which was registered in the Bahamas. He did this just 2 weeks before he filed for bankruptcy. And the sole owner of Blue Harbor Holdings? It was Vivian Hart. As Charlotte stood in her mother's kitchen, staring at the documents spread out on the table, a new sense of determination hardened inside of her. Nathan had not simply cheated on her. He had not just tried to take their child away. He had planned and executed a complex financial crime with the specific goal of leaving her with absolutely nothing, while he continued to live a life of luxury with the very woman who helped him ruin their marriage. They had been in on this together, perhaps from the very beginning. Charlotte picked up her phone and dialed a number she never thought she would have a reason to call. Vivian picked up after the third ring. "Charlotte?" Vivian's voice was careful and filled with surprise. "How did you even get this number?" "That is not important," Charlotte answered. "What is important is what I am about to say to you." She could hear Vivian moving around, most likely making sure Nathan was not close enough to overhear. "I know all about Blue Harbor Holdings," Charlotte said calmly. "I know about the $8 million Nathan wired to you 2 weeks before he declared bankruptcy. I know that this action makes you an accomplice to federal fraud. And I also know that federal fraud can get you up to 10 years in a federal prison." There was complete silence on the other end of the phone. "You have 2 choices," Charlotte stated, her voice perfectly calm. "You can either testify against Nathan in exchange for full immunity, or you can go down right alongside him. The choice is yours." When Vivian finally spoke, her voice was strained. "You are bluffing." "Am I?" Charlotte looked at the proof on her laptop screen. "I am currently looking at the official wire transfer record. I am looking at the corporate registration that has your name all over it. And I am also looking at statements from 3 other women who are ready to testify about Nathan's pattern of behavior. What part of this do you think is a bluff?" More silence. "He promised me that I was different," Vivian said at last. Her voice was suddenly smaller and had lost all of its confidence. "He told me that too," Charlotte replied. "The only difference between us is that I eventually stopped believing his lies." She let that statement hang in the air for a moment. "There is one more thing you need to know," Charlotte added. "I have emails. They show that Nathan was planning to cut you out of the deal entirely once the bankruptcy was complete. He was going to move to the Bahamas with a new woman for a fresh start that did not include you." "That is not true," Vivian said, but her denial was too quick. "Why not ask him yourself?" Charlotte suggested. "See how he reacts." She then waited patiently. "What is it that you want?" Vivian finally asked. "I want the truth to come out, and I want Nathan to pay for what he has done. To me, to our daughter, and to every other woman he has hurt before us." Vivian was quiet for a very long time. Then she spoke 2 words that would change the course of everything. "I am in." The charity gala was at the Plaza Hotel on the first Saturday in December. Charlotte had received an invitation from a professional contact who remembered her from her career before she met Nathan, before the marriage, before her whole world fell apart. It was the type of high society event where major deals were made with quiet smiles over glasses of wine, a place where a reputation could be ruined without a single headline. It was the absolute perfect setting for what Charlotte had in mind. She showed up by herself, dressed in a simple black gown. She wore no jewelry, nothing to make a statement. She only wore an air of quiet elegance and the powerful confidence of a woman who knew exactly what was about to unfold. The grand ballroom was alive with the sparkle of crystal chandeliers and the scent of expensive perfumes. Conversations were a low hum under the soft music. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was playing a part. Nathan was standing near the middle of the room. He seemed thinner than she remembered, with a new hardness around his eyes. His suit was still perfectly tailored, and his posture was still confident. But she could see the strain just beneath the surface. She saw the desperation. Charlotte made her way through the crowd, nodding at people she barely knew. Her gaze remained locked on Nathan, watching him charm the room, watching him act as if everything was perfectly fine. Then she walked toward him. Nathan watched her approach. His face betrayed a quick series of emotions, first surprise, then confusion, and finally caution. "Charlotte," he said, his voice measured, I was not expecting to see you here tonight." She came to a stop about 3 feet away from him, close enough to talk, but with enough space for others to see them. "Hello, Nathan." His eyes scanned her, from head to toe, taking note of the changes. "You look different." "I feel different," she replied. He tried to force a smile, but it was hollow and did not reach his eyes. "How is the baby?" "Her name is Emma," Charlotte said, her tone perfectly level. "And she is doing wonderful. Thank you so much for asking." The sarcasm in her voice was quiet, but impossible to miss. Nathan's jaw clenched. "What are you doing here, Charlotte?" She tilted her head just slightly. "I wanted to see you, one last time." "Before what?" he asked. "Before your entire world changes." She reached into her small purse and took out a thin folder. Nathan's eyes immediately shot down to it, and a look of pure fear flashed across his face. He recognized what was happening. He knew exactly what was coming. "This folder is being delivered to the Federal Bureau of Investigation on Monday morning," Charlotte said. Her voice was low but unwavering. "It details the fraudulent bankruptcy, the hidden assets, and the wire transfers to Blue Harbor Holdings. It has everything." The color completely drained from Nathan's face. "You cannot prove any of that." "Actually, I can," Charlotte said. She opened the folder and showed him the top page. It was a copy of a wire transfer record. It showed his signature, Vivian's name, and the amount. $8 million, Nathan. It is all right there in black and white. Nathan's calm exterior finally shattered. "That is illegal. You obtained that document illegally." "I got it from your mistress," Charlotte responded coolly. "She is currently cooperating with investigators to receive full immunity. She has told them everything." Nathan just stared at her, speechless, for the first time in his life. Charlotte closed the folder and placed it back in her purse. "You dedicated our entire marriage to making me feel small," she said. "You made me feel invisible and worthless. You believed that if you silenced me for long enough, I would eventually just fade away. But there is something you never understood about me, Nathan. I was not quiet because I was weak. I was quiet because I was watching." She took one step closer, lowering her voice so that only he could hear her words. "You once told me that everything you did was for our future. Well, Nathan, this is your future." With that, she turned and walked away. From behind her, she could hear Nathan's voice, now full of desperation. "Charlotte, wait, we can talk about this. We can figure something out." She did not slow down. She did not even glance back. The consequences of that night played out over the next several months. The Federal Bureau of Investigation arrested Nathan on 14 counts of fraud. Vivian testified against him, providing details of years of financial manipulation and concealed assets. The fake psychiatric evaluation was brought to light, and Dr. Marcus Bell lost his medical license. The hospital administrator, who had illegally leaked Charlotte's medical history, was sent to prison. Nathan's trial went on for 3 weeks. The amount of evidence against him was staggering. There were bank records, witness statements, and a paper trail that stretched from Park Avenue all the way to the Bahamas and back. Nathan's expensive legal team tried every trick in the book, but the truth was simply too powerful to hide. The jury took only 4 hours to reach a verdict, guilty on all charges. Nathan Cole received a sentence of 12 years in federal prison. At the sentencing, Charlotte was given the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. She stood at the podium and looked directly at the man she had once loved, the man who had tried to completely destroy her, and she felt an unexpected emotion: peace. "You asked me once why I left you without putting up a fight," she said, her voice clear and strong as it filled the courtroom. "The truth is, I did not leave without a fight. I left so I could prepare for one. And now, that fight is over." She took a steadying breath. "You are going to a prison cell. I am returning home to our daughter, the little girl you have not mentioned a single time, not once over the last 2 years. You did not ask when she was born. You did not ask when she learned to walk. Not one single time." Nathan just sat there, at the defense table, his expression completely empty. "You believed your money gave you power," Charlotte went on, "but fortunes can be lost. Reputations can be destroyed. The only real thing you had was me, and you discarded me." She stared straight at him. "That was your greatest error." With that, Charlotte turned and left the courtroom, never once glancing back. The doors swung shut behind her. It was truly finished. A couple of years went by. Charlotte crafted a new life for herself in Virginia, a world away from the towering glass buildings and fancy penthouses she once considered home. Her interior design company experienced steady, not sudden growth. She was selective about her projects, choosing clients who understood boundaries and taking on work that let her be present whenever Emma needed her. Emma was growing up in a flash. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of preschool, an event that required so many pictures that Charlotte's phone memory was completely full. Linda pitched in with childcare, spoiling her granddaughter without shame and faking a strict voice when Emma had a tantrum about her bedtime. Megan came to visit whenever she could, showing up with a bottle of wine, the latest legal gossip, and the same sarcastic wit that had helped Charlotte survive her most difficult days. "You know," Megan commented one evening as they watched Emma chase fireflies in the yard, "I still find it unbelievable that you managed all of it." Charlotte offered a small smile. "Which part are you talking about?" "Everything. The way you gathered evidence, the entire investigation, getting Vivian to become a cooperating witness, bringing down a man with a net worth in the hundreds of millions." "I had help," Charlotte replied. "I did not do it by myself." "True," Megan conceded. "But you were the one who simply would not give up. Most women would have accepted the initial settlement and just moved on." Charlotte watched her daughter squeal with joy as a firefly lit up near her tiny hand. "Moving on would have been the same as letting him win," Charlotte said softly. "And Emma deserved a mother who did not know how to quit." Megan lifted her glass. "To never giving up." Charlotte touched her glass to her friends with a soft clink. "To never given up." The new romance had bloomed slowly. David Mitchell knew Charlotte from high school, long before Nathan, New York, and all the chaos. He taught history at the local middle school and was kind and patient. He was also completely uninterested in money or social status. They bumped into each other at a grocery store, of all places. Charlotte was fighting with a shopping cart that had a bad wheel while her daughter, Emma, was trying to scale a mountain of cereal boxes. "Need a hand with that?" David asked, suddenly appearing beside her with a warm smile. Charlotte glanced up, recognized his face, and let out a laugh. "That depends. Can you magically fix shopping carts and wrangle a toddler at the same time?" He admitted he could not fix the cart, but he was able to make Emma laugh so hard that she completely forgot her mission to conquer the cereal aisle. Their journey began with a simple coffee date. That turned into dinner. Soon, they were spending weekends together at the park, making sandcastles and feeding the ducks. David only brought up Nathan one time. "Do you want to tell me about him?" he asked quietly, one evening after Emma was asleep. Charlotte paused to think about his question. "There is not much to share. I married a man who did not see my worth, so I left. I made something much better for us." David simply nodded. "That is all I need to know." And it really was. Their wedding was an intimate affair, just 30 guests. The ceremony was held in their backyard. The flowers came from the local farmer's market. Charlotte purchased her dress from a store rack without needing to try on 400 other options first. Emma served as the flower girl. She handled her duties with extreme seriousness, dropping petals with the intense focus of a surgeon. Charlotte's mother wept throughout the whole ceremony, dabbing at her eyes with tissues and claiming it was just her allergies. Megan delivered a toast that had everyone chuckling. To Charlotte and David, she announced, lifting her glass, "May your new marriage last longer than the old one." Which, to be fair, is not a particularly high standard. But still. Charlotte laughed so uncontrollably that she almost spilled champagne all over her dress. The party continued until the stroke of midnight. Emma eventually dozed off in her grandmother's lap. David and Charlotte slow danced beneath strings of twinkling lights, his arms wrapped securely around her waist, his voice a gentle whisper next to her ear. "I love you," he murmured. "I love you too." And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Charlotte said those words with zero hesitation. Life went on. Emma began kindergarten. Charlotte's design business grew, taking on clients in neighboring states. David's middle school debate team, under his coaching, won their very first regional championship. They purchased a home with a large backyard and promptly filled it with activity and clutter and affection. Charlotte found herself thinking of Nathan less and less often. He became a memory, much like a severe storm feels after it has passed. It was destructive at the time, but now it was far away. Occasionally she would wonder if he ever thought of her, or of Emma, or of the life he so carelessly threw away. She guessed he probably did not. Men like Nathan do not reflect on their losses. They simply change the story in their minds until they become the victims, until the blame lies with everyone else. Charlotte was not bothered by it. She had everything that mattered. Then, 5 years following the trial, a letter showed up for Charlotte. It was delivered on a Tuesday morning in the middle of the spring, tucked between some bills, a few catalogs, and a drawing Emma had made with crayons at school. Charlotte nearly overlooked it. The return address was a federal penitentiary in Pennsylvania. For a long moment, Charlotte just stood there at her kitchen counter, staring down at the envelope. This was something she had not anticipated, something she was not ready for. At last, she tore it open. The letter was composed by hand. It was 2 pages long. It was Nathan's handwriting, which she recognized immediately, even after so much time had passed. "Charlotte, I have had a great deal of time to think. 5 years is an eternity when your own thoughts are your only company. I realize you will probably never read this. I realize I have no right to a reply. But I feel compelled to say this. I am sorry, and not just because I was caught. I wasted the first 2 years in here telling myself that was my only mistake. Getting caught, being sloppy, putting my trust in the wrong people. But none of that is the truth. My real mistake was losing you. It was losing the opportunity to know Emma. It was losing the man I used to be when you still had faith in me. I have seen the pictures from her 5th birthday. Your mother still sends me Christmas cards, even though I have never once written back. Emma has your smile. She appears to be happy. She appears to be cherished. I have no right to see any of that, but I am grateful that I did." Charlotte put the letter down, a tightness in her chest from an emotion she could not identify. She continued reading. "You were correct about all of it, about Vivian, about the financial crimes, about the man I had turned into. I was so consumed with the idea of winning that I lost sight of what a real victory was supposed to be. I mistakenly believed it meant having more wealth, more influence, more authority. It was not until after you were gone that I understood the only thing of any value was the life we might have shared together. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking for another chance. I am aware that both of those are impossible. I only wanted to let you know that I finally get it now, what I had, what I gave up, what I ruined. I hope you have found happiness. I truly mean that, Nathan. Charlotte read the final word and placed the letter on the counter. She gazed out the window into her backyard, where Emma was playing. David was giving her a push on the swing, and both of them were laughing. For just a second, Charlotte allowed herself to experience it all: the rage, the sorrow, that strange mix of pity and gratification that arises from seeing someone finally deal with the outcome of their own actions. After a moment, she folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and shut it. She never wrote him back. That night, once Emma was sound asleep and David was in the living room grading school papers, Charlotte went out to the back porch to watch the stars appear one by one. The letter remained in the drawer. She had not mentioned it to David. Perhaps she would later. Perhaps she never would. It did not seem important. Charlotte reflected on the person she was 5 years earlier, frightened, utterly alone, pregnant, and running from a life that had become a prison. She remembered the nights she had sobbed until her whole body hurt. She remembered the days filled with constant self-doubt. And then she thought about her life now, the company she had established, the family she had nurtured, the daughter who called David Daddy, and had almost no memory of any other man ever being in her life. Nathan's letter had not asked her for anything. That was likely the most genuine thing he had ever offered her. But as she sat there, under the night sky, Charlotte knew she did not require his apology. She had ceased needing anything at all from Nathan Cole a very long time ago. True recovery does not come from the one who caused the pain. It comes from the life you manage to build after they are no longer in it. Charlotte's life was rich. It was chaotic. It was imperfect. It was filled with the boisterous energy of a 7-year-old and the comforting, quiet presence of her husband. It was precisely the life she never realized she had always wanted, and it belonged to her. The following morning, Emma discovered the open drawer while she was searching for some crayons. "Mommy, what is this?" she asked, holding the envelope up with curious eyes. Charlotte gently took it from her. "It is just an old letter, my dear." "Who is it from?" "It is from a person I knew a long time ago." Emma thought about this with the serious look she always got when she was learning something new. "Are they a friend of yours?" Charlotte smiled and wrapped her daughter in a warm embrace. "No, my sweet girl, they are not." She put the letter away in the drawer and made sure it was closed. Then she held Emma's hand, and they walked into the kitchen, where David was busy making pancakes, and the morning light was pouring through the windows like a golden promise. "Come on," Charlotte said. "It is time for breakfast." Her past was in the past. Her future was happening right now, and it was absolutely wonderful. If this story resonated with you, if Charlotte's path reminded you that real power is not just about fighting, but about choosing the right moment to make your move, please do something for me. Go ahead and click that like button. It lets me know that you appreciate stories like this one. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you might have done if you were in Charlotte's situation. I personally read every single comment. And if you are not yet a subscriber, this is the perfect opportunity. We release new stories each week, stories that celebrate resilience, that demand justice, and that feature women who will not be silenced. Please share this with anyone who you think needs this message today. Because every now and then, hearing the right story at the perfect time can make all the difference. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for staying with me to the very end. And always remember, the next chapter of your life has not yet been written. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful lessons and real value to your life. Every story we share is crafted with purpose, because we believe the right story at the right time can change everything.